Hello and good evening, Chicago. Welcome back in to another episode of Chi-Town Weekly here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. To borrow a line from my colleague, well, what a weekend. Friday is usually a news drop. You want to hide some bad story and hope it blows over on the weekend. It is not the customary time to be trading the number one overall pick. Ryan Poles doesn't care one bit about that. The King has received his ransom. A number one this year, a number two this year, a number one the year after that, a number two the year after that, and oh, by the way, a genuine, bona fide, no doubt about it, number one wide receiver for Justin Fields. Can you tell that I'm excited about this? Holy cow, what a move. Ryan Poles is a shrewd operator. We are going to be breaking that down, plus the beginning of, well, what is in all intents and purposes, free agency in the NFL. A couple of moves, a couple of signings here, but that's not all on the docket for tonight. No, Matt Garner has returned. He's going to talk some Bears with us as well, but he is also going to be breaking down the NCAA bracket for us. The committee has decided who's in, what net ratings they like this year. Do Northwestern or Illinois stand a chance? Tune in and find out. This is Chi-Town Weekly. Let's go. Welcome back in, everyone. This is Chi-Town Weekly here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Adam Karnick back with you tonight. This is going to be a fun episode. I had plans for this episode anyway. I was planning that we were going to be talking some NCAA brackets. We were going to look at what Northwestern and Illinois might be able to do this go around, see how they might be doing in the tournament. I did not expect that we were going to be discussing the trading of the number one overall pick. Ryan Poles coming in here hot this offseason. We heard him right after the combine talk about how he felt he could get a first-round pick in 2024, a first-round pick in 2025, and by golly, he delivered and then some. We are going to be breaking that down. We've also got the legal tampering period open in the NFL. For all intents and purposes, that is the start of free agency. Call it what it is. We move on from there. And then we will get into some bracket discussion tonight. Lots going on. Glad that you are here with us. Ways, of course, that you can interact with this station and with this show. Of course, you can follow along on all the social media platforms. We are at IE Sports Radio, whether it's TikTok, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, at IE Sports Radio gets you there. This show is available for you on Twitter at IESRC, or if you want to follow along with me personally, I am at Adam_Karnick on Twitter. One of these days, I'll probably join some of the other ones, but for right now, I'm just on Twitter. And if you are listening live here on Spreaker on this Monday night, first of all, good evening. Hello. And then if you are listening live, hop on into the chat room, interact with us, have some fun there. Taryn Rodriguez is there. Larry B is there. And then also our guest for the evening, Matt Garner. He's hanging out in the chat room, but he's also hanging out in the green room with us a little bit. He's on board to be talking, well, ostensibly we were going to be talking brackets, but we may as well talk some Bears too while we're at it. You can follow him on Twitter at MattG53. as well as being a bracketologist extraordinaire. In his spare time, he also is a math teacher at junior high level, hence the love of math and numbers that you will very much understand after listening to this. He's a volleyball coach. Taryn, the two of you can definitely coordinate on that a bit. And he does some public address announcing, math, and oh, by the way, he does happen to be the godfather for my daughter. Welcome back into the program, Matt Garner. Matt, how you doing tonight, good sir?
I'm doing very well. Thank you for, again, having me on. This is one of the biggest things that I really look forward to every year. So, again, thank you for having me on.
You're very welcome. We can make this happen more often if we want to. We don't just have to wait for bracketology time.
That is my jam, but I understand.
Well, we'd have to start off with the Bears. That trade. It was funny on Friday. Actually, you alerted me to it in our little group thread of the move, and I was floored by it. The picks, getting the 3 extra picks plus staying in the top 10, but then also getting DJ Moore. That to me is really the cream of this whole trade. Is now Justin Fields has a true bona fide, no doubt about it, number 1 wide receiver. He's got a primary target now.
I was looking back in that group chat that we had, and I had to remind myself that I, in fact, was not dreaming. I had to pinch myself a few times to see if this was actual reality, and I was just like you. I was floored with everything that they got in that deal.
I mean, he keeps. I really am liking Poles more and more as we go along. I've mentioned this on the show before. He reminds me of Theo Epstein, and not in he's really analytically data-driven, but in the way that he says what he means, and he means what he says. He doesn't – obviously there are things that he can't lay out the whole recipe for you, but at the same time, he's going to tell you, we're making a chocolate cake, I need eggs and flour, and – he goes and gets eggs and flour. You know, he tells you what he needs to get, and he goes out and does it, and he holds true with that. He said before the combine, I'm not trading Justin Fields. I like Justin Fields. We don't need another quarterback. Sure enough, he doesn't trade Justin Fields. He says after the combine, I can get a 1 in 24 and I can get a 1 in 25. And basically, that's what he got. The Panthers tried offering him a 1 in 25, and he said, no, I'd rather have DJ Moore, thanks. And they caved and gave him DJ Moore.
Yep. What I'm likening this to, and I know you're going to talk about the moves that they made today, but what I really like about Poles is now his handcuffs are off for all intents and purposes. Look at the mess he inherited from Ryan Pace and that regime. But now he's getting to his own groove. He's getting to do what he wants, and he's betting big. He's going all in, and the moves that he's been making so far, like I said, I couldn't be happier. It's definitely trending in the right direction.
It's amazing that this trade was 1 year to the day of when Khalil Mack got shipped out. You know, that signaled the tear down, the beginning of the end, and that let everybody know that, okay, 2022 is going to be a rough season. We're just going to have to buckle up and grin and bear it and get through this. And now exactly a year later, he's already signaling that, hey, we're on the upswing now. We're no longer tearing down. We're no longer we're able to start rebuilding and start looking ahead a little bit. And it's just, I know in football we always say that it doesn't have to be long, but it's still just a season later, a year later, we're on the upswing.
And quite honestly, as a Bears fan, even if it's 1 year or 6 years, whatever the case is, anytime there's a rebuild or a breakdown, we're in misery until we can see something. We can see some light at the end of the tunnel. It's just kind of interesting to see how the Bears are tearing down their roster, and they're going to maybe perhaps build a new stadium that's going to coincide with their roster overhaul too. So you never know.
Yeah, you never know. We don't know when the new stadium will actually be occupied and played in, but I'll be honest, I'm kind of getting the feeling now that when they're moving in, they're already going to be a contender. It's not going to be waiting for the new stadium and now we're going to contend. They're going to come into that new stadium already feeling like they're in contention and in a position to play.
Yep. I mean, that's the hope, but we know what the Bears are also capable of doing when they put things together, though, too. So,
yeah, in a lot of ways, though, this feels very different. If for no other reason, I mean, obviously, we've got a ton of time between now and then. Obviously, we didn't even hit free agency until really today, and the trade had already been made. So there's plenty of time for other moves to be made. But for the first time since, if my math is right on this, 2003, the Bears are going to have multiple first-round picks in a draft. Obviously, it's not till 2024, but am I right in remembering that the last time that happened was 2003, the Michael Haynes, Rex Grossman draft?
That would track. That would definitely track.
I mean, we're so used to not having a first-round pick, or hell, not even having a second-round pick, that having multiple first-round picks just feels weird to say.
It's gonna be like Christmas in July again at this point.
It is. It's gonna feel so good and so amazing. But it's still, to me, just the cream of this whole thing is DJ Moore, a guy that, all right, he maybe doesn't have the build of a number one wide receiver. He's 6 foot, 210 pounds, but his numbers indicate he's a number one guy. He is you put him out in the X position, you let the defensive best corner take him, and he's going to win that matchup more often than not.
And it's not just size, but he knows how to run a route, and that is key.
No,
I mean,
kidding.
Look at how many people we've had, even as number ones, other than like maybe Allen Robinson in the last few years, that don't know how to run a route.
I look at the Packers game last year where EQ cost Justin Fields an interception because he ran just such a horrible curl route where everybody knew what was coming, and he didn't shield off the defender one bit. That's not going to happen with DJ Moore. At least it better not.
And more speed is going to be his go-to anyway. So I'm really stoked that we have more of a number one than we did for a very long time.
Yeah, and it was funny. As I heard the news on Friday, I got in my car to get home from work, and I heard somebody call into the radio, and they couldn't believe that the Bears had traded for Moore, that they thought it was just that he's such a terrible wide receiver, and it was, this guy's gonna be our biggest headache since Brandon Marshall. And it was, if you get the production of Brandon Marshall, I'll take the off the field headache. Thank you. Let's have a 1,200 yard receiver again, please. I'd much rather have the production at this point than worry about whether or not the guy's going to be a headache. And by all accounts, DJ Moore isn't a headache. He gets along great with his teammates. He gets along well in the community. He's a great guy to have on the team.
Absolutely.
So just a huge, huge, huge move. But then we do have the free agent signings today. And this is going to kind of help gear what we're going to be looking at as we get into now what do the Bears do with the number 9 pick? Because, of course, all we've been talking about to this point are quarterbacks and defensive linemen. Now, the trade back to 9, I feel like puts offensive line in play. And let's face it, offensive line is still a huge need for the Bears. Yes, they did go out and get a guard from Tennessee earlier today in free agency, but by and large, the moves they've been making are on the defensive side of the ball. A couple of linebackers, Tremaine Edwards from Buffalo, and then Tremaine Edmunds from Buffalo, and then TJ Edwards from Philadelphia. Are you surprised at all by the moves that they've made through the first day of free agency?
I wouldn't say surprised of who they got. I was really surprised that those caliber players were readily available. I mean, money's going to speak volumes, and like I've said before, he's putting all his chips on the table right now. At this point, if we have the number 9 pick, we know that there's going to be some good offensive linemen that are going to go at least, 5th or lower. So there's going to be a lot of good talent out there. They're not going to have 5 or 6 offensive linemen in the first 5 or 6 picks anyway. So that's where I would go to. But as far as Poles is concerned, yeah, I'm not surprised that he's done this. I'm kind of surprised it's been this early in free agency. But to me, that also tells me that the players are buying into the system already as well, too. And that's going to be huge. If you don't have buy-in from the people that you're signing or with the team that you have currently, it really doesn't matter.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. You buy it. I mean, you can always tell when a coach is nearing the end when the players stop taking it seriously on the sidelines, whether it's in practice or in the games. You can always tell that, that's when this coach or this regime is on its way out. So,
and that's universal. It's not just football, but
oh yeah, that's basketball, that's hockey, that's volleyball, that's whatever sport you're doing. As soon as they lose that buy-in from the players' standpoint, then yeah, it's time to look at moving on. So I feel like now, I feel like now as we move back into 9, we've got a whole host of new players to be looking at. I feel like the offensive line really is what comes into focus now at this position. You've got some guys that would have been way inappropriate to be drafting in the top 3 or 4, but back at 9, guys like Paris Johnson from Ohio State, or Peter Skoronski from Northwestern, even though he's grandson of Packers loyalty and grew up a Packers fan. He's just got a name that sounds like he belongs on the Bears. A bunch of the fans in the 300 sections would fall in love with Skoronski out there mowing people down, moving people over.
Names or history or anything. I care about what they do on the football field, and he definitely did well for Northwestern this past year. I mean, Northwestern had a down year with football, but he was one of the bright spots on that team.
Yeah, and he's a little interesting in that a lot of people don't know whether he'd be a tackle in the NFL or if he'd be a guard. Well, you know what? The Bears have holes at both. So you take him and he fills a hole. Maybe not the hole you were expecting, but he fills a hole.
And that's going to go with development, too, and how the offensive line coaches are going to handle everything, too. So,
yeah. But at the same time, this is a super deep draft for defensive line, especially edge rushers. There are some guys there that might not otherwise, you wouldn't have thought about taking up at the upper end, but are still going to be really high quality. Or heck, I know that all of his legal problems have to get taken care of and resolved first, but Jalen Carter might still be there at number 9. I mean, if you were to tell me before all this that the Bears could move down from 1 to 9 and wind up with all this extra capital plus DJ Moore and still get arguably the best football player in this draft, that's theft right there.
Well, I mean, quite honestly, if they were talking about Jalen Carter drafting number 1, look at the other teams that are drafting 2 through 8 at this point. They're going to be more offensively minded with either quarterbacks. I mean, we have a deep quarterback class this year. We have a lot of running backs. We have some wide receivers going to come off the board early. So I would have thought that Carter or someone of his caliber would be almost available at 9 anyway. So if we're going to rob other teams and we can let other teams make it easier for us, and we're going to get the same player than what we would have probably drafted at the beginning anyway, why not?
It's just, Taryn puts it perfectly in the chat room. This offseason can give immortality to the Bears if they play their cards right. It's so strange a feeling that the Bears could be in the catbird seat like this. That it's just so unusual and so foreign territory. That's the best way I can think of it.
That's a good descriptor.
All right. So those are some I've got my Bears juices all flowing. But that is not really the reason, Mr. Garner, that we brought you on. We need to take a very fast break, but then on the other side of this, get your brackets out. Get them ready, get them prepped. The tournament, I know it technically starts tomorrow. Now, the tournament starts Thursday. Those first 4 games are weird, and we move on from those. The tournament is here. Mr. Garner is going to help you fill out your bracket and win that IE Sports Radio Bracketology contest. We will be right back on the other side of this. Do not go anywhere. You are listening to Chi-Town Weekly here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Are you a fan of Buffalo sports? Are you thinking of changing loyalties and becoming a Buffalo sports fan? Do you even know where Buffalo is on the map? Did you know Canada is closer to Buffalo than New York City? Welcome to the Buffalo Huddle, every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and 4 p.m. Pacific Coast Time on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. I'm your host, Patty Bax. This is a podcast designed for you, the passionate sports fan. I know you love your sports. Who doesn't? I cover Buffalo sports and so much more by bringing in the human elements. I call it Buffalo Sports with a Twist. Join me as we take a journey into the world of Buffalo sports. I guarantee you'll fall in love with Buffalo just like I did. Each week we start with an inspiration, question of the day, a Buffalo fun fact, and our weekly challenge to you, the listener. Come huddle up with me every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and 4 p.m. Pacific Coast Time for the Buffalo Huddle with Patty Bax on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. As we say in Buffalo, go Bills!
Hey sports fans, do you like wine? Well, we've got the show for you. This is Let's Wine About Sports, a show where we talk about wine and sports simultaneously. From the classic Cabernet Sauvignon all the way down to the grapes that you've never even heard of before. Oh yeah, we cover it all. And we'll talk about a little bit of sports as well. Football, hockey, collegiate, women's sports, it doesn't matter. We're going to talk about it all, and we're going to whine about it all. So join me Monday at 8 p.m. on IU Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Attention, all sports fans! If you're someone who wakes up each morning with a list of sporting events to go along with your to-do list for the day, then you just might be a diehard. The world of sports is as vast as the ocean is deep, including the major leagues, the minor leagues, the college, and everything in between. This is me, your boy Larry B of IE Sports Radio, welcoming you to join me every Monday evening at 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern on The Defining Moment, a show that focuses on what really matters in the sports world, sports themselves, and nothing outside of them. Once again, tune in for The Defining Moment with me, your boy Larry B, every Monday evening at 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern on IE Sports Radio, right here on Spreaker.com. We'll see you there.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Davidson.
It's your boy Dentarius Lava.
And we're the hosts of Fast Break here on IE Sports Radio, where we discuss everything in the world of basketball from prep to the pros.
You guys should definitely check us out, man. Sunday, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. We got all the basketball information you guys need, so we look forward to you guys listening in.
And please do, because we are the best basketball show on this side of the Mississippi. And please do check us out on Twitter at FastBreakISR. D-Lock, where's our time again?
8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. That gives you guys plenty of time on a Sunday.
Tune in.
What's up, everybody? This is Darren Rodriguez. Are you a fan of volleyball? Are you a fan of Thunderous Spikes? Then I have the show for you, Set Point, where I cover NCAA men's and women's volleyball, high school boys and girls volleyball, beach volleyball, and even professional volleyball. Catch the action every week here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
And welcome back into Chi-Town Weekly, everybody. Woo! Lot of energy in that first segment. Hope you enjoyed it as much as Matt Garner and I enjoyed bringing it to you. And by the way, we should be correct here. Matt is known as Hype Matt. The Hype Girls are listening in internationally, so we've got an international audience, all thanks to you, Mr. Garner, so thank you for that. And as we get ready to discuss bracketology here, before we get too far in, happy 25th anniversary to Bryce Drew Day.
That was my most memorable experience. That's the first thing I ever remember from watching the basketball tournament. Kind of a funny story about that. I was at school during the day when the game was actually on, so I taped it on my VCR, just showing you how old I am with this. And so I went back and watched it after school let out, and my parents knew what had happened. I had no clue how the game was going. And so I'm watching the whole game, first half, second half. Right before the shot actually happened, Drew missed a wide open three that would have put them ahead. And then they fouled and this, and you see how the sequence plays out. And I'm thinking to myself, I was in 7th grade at the time, just for that reference. I was thinking to myself, there's no way they're going to win this. There's absolutely no way they're going to win this. And when the ball went out of bounds, they had like 2.5 seconds left. They put somebody on the inbounder, and I was thinking to myself, why in the world would we put somebody on the inbounder? It's going to take one fake, the ball is going to get into the front court, and they actually have a chance. And that's exactly what happened. But Jamie Sykes was the guy who threw the inbounds pass, made one fake, and they threw it to Bill Jenkins, and then who found Drew on the wing. And as soon as that ball left his hand, I knew it was in, and pandemonium set in afterwards. It was one of my favorite plays of all time. It didn't hurt that it was local college at the same time, but seriously, one of the best pure shots that I've seen in any event, but it's one that's going to be lasting a lifetime in the NCAA tournament.
It's one of those moments too that just is it just is such a prime example of what March Madness can be for so many people. The little school that so many people are not familiar with beating a blue blood. It's part of what we love about this. Well, Matt, you, as we mentioned at the very top, you love math. So much so that you have developed your own algorithms and your own formulas for figuring out the NCAA bracket ahead of time. And way more often than not, your bracket is darned accurate to the real thing. So when we get to this, I know of no better person to bring in to help us prep for this tournament than you. So tell us, first of all, a little bit about, just give us the quick rundown of your little methodology, and then let's talk some hoops.
Okay. First and foremost, again, thank you for having me on. This is awesome. I wouldn't say that I love math so much, but I mean, it is a part of my system. So, I mean, there is that. I am called Stat Boy for a reason by my lovely family. So there is that. But anyway, what I do is I'm not going to give all my trade secrets, away. But I have I've developed a system that takes the net rating, different analytics, with the quadrant wins. Yeah, I saw that. Anyway, just different analytics with the math, with the quadrants, and just rate different games in different situations. And like I said, I can't give away too many details because people might take my system and actually make it work a little bit better.
We have to pay for your daughter's college someday, and that's what this is going to do.
Exactly. So if I give all my secrets away, I wouldn't be able to have any rights to that money. So there is that. But I take all the numbers I literally have a spreadsheet, as my wife just mentioned in the chat. The spreadsheet has literally 18 tabs on it with all the different formulas, with all the different ways that I can sort and rank and do everything with the logos and the teams and everything like that. And if I didn't have that, it would make my job a lot more harder, especially since I do this for somewhat fun. So there is that.
Fun being the relative term there, but we all have our hobbies. So let's dive into this tournament a little bit. We've got, of course, the Big Ten is well represented, as it always is, but we've got Northwestern and Illinois winding up not even on the same side of the bracket, but in the same region. We've got Northwestern as a 7, Illinois as a 9. And we had that wild, wacky, weird Big Ten tournament that just got done. Do either of these schools stand any chance of getting out of the first weekend? Let's start there with both of these.
Well, I'll start with Illinois since that was the one I had first and alphabetically. I mean, there's that. Illinois was a 9 in the West. They're going to play Arkansas. Looking at different user entries on like all the different major websites and tournament challenges, they're not expected to get by Arkansas in the first round. So, I mean, there's that. But if they can get past Arkansas, they would be up against number 1 Kansas, who is the national champion from last year. So I don't see a really good path for Illinois to get out of the round of 32, to be quite honest with you. I mean, Kansas is a buzzsaw. They play in the best conference in the league with the Big 12. Big 12 had 7 teams in the tournament this year, and I think they could have probably had 8, which we'll discuss later. But Illinois' issue is the 8-9 game is always the toughest one because the talent level is so close to each other. So, I mean, it could be a toss-up even in the first round.
Is there any chance, I know Bill Self missed the last game for Kansas. He had some health problems. He's out of the hospital, discharged, all those wonderful things. Is there any chance that, say, that matchup happens for Illinois? Is there any benefit to them for that, or is it really just, no, you still have to go through Kansas, they're really just that much better?
It's going to be a college basketball game. It's going to be a fight regardless, but you can't go back on history with a former coach, this, and this. Well, if we lost to a really good coach, but I think the sting of the loss, of no matter who you're going to play, is going to outweigh any sort of connection you would have with any other team or any other coach.
Okay, so unlikely that Illinois makes it out of the first weekend. Then how about Northwestern? How about the Wildcats? They've got to be the surprise of certainly the Big Ten, arguably of college basketball. I mean, this was a program that was looking like it was probably going to be firing its head coach and starting over, and instead they were the 2 seed in the Big Ten. There was the chance that they might win the Big Ten, and then Big Ten tournament happens and they fall on their face in Chicago. They wind up a 7 seed in this tournament. They've got a somewhat favorable draw against Boise State to start. What do you think about the Wildcats?
Well, the word that comes to mind for Northwestern is an enigma. Like at the beginning of the season, they were picked to, I believe, finish either 10th or 11th in the conference. And they were 2 games out of first place in the regular season against Purdue and Indiana and all the normal people you would put up there. But my issue with Northwestern is they haven't been to the tournament often enough to get a good feel of it. They have not been to the tournament often enough to, like I said, get a good feel of things. And also just that experience is going to be huge. I'm telling you what, though, if Chris Collins didn't turn it around this year, he would have been out the door already. So I think he definitely saved his job, at least for probably good 2 or 3 more years at this point, because it got bad really quickly. But as far as the team goes for Northwestern, they can beat you with their game, but they also kind of tend to play down to their level too. I mean, playing Nebraska, playing the teams in Minnesota, stuff like that. They were in those games a little bit, but they could have done a whole lot better. And when you get to the big time with the Big Ten tournament, they kind of lost their first game pretty badly as well too. But let's be fair, the only team that didn't lose as the higher seed in the Big Ten tournament was Purdue. every other team that was the lower seed would have actually won that. So I can't really discredit them that too much. But as far as their entry into the tournament this year, they have a good chance of beating Boise State. I mean, it's 7-10 matchup. There's the competition still there, but Boise State hasn't played the type of teams that Northwestern plays on a regular basis. So Northwestern is going to be tough. Northwestern is going to be playing hard. They have a really good perimeter. They have really good defense, and they can rebound. This is only the second time that Northwestern's been in the tournament. First time since 2017, where they beat Vanderbilt in the first round, and then they lost to Gonzaga in that year. Gonzaga lost to North Carolina in the national championship game. So there's a good chance that they can do well. I don't see them getting past the round of 32, mostly because UCLA has their second round match, and UCLA is a 2 seed. Quite honestly, we'll get to this in a little bit. I thought UCLA should have been a number 1 seed more than Alabama. But again, that's me. I don't make the brackets, but I don't really see them getting past UCLA. There's just I don't see a path for that.
Yeah, I even in my first pass through of the bracket, I actually even had them being upset by Boise State. I feel like I can't trust Northwestern. It's very exciting that they did really well this season at Chicago's Big Ten team, surprise. But as you were saying, there's still that feeling that we made it. Look at us. This is so cool. Where it's like, okay, yeah, but you have to produce while you're here. It shouldn't be enough to just make it.
I mean, you have to start somewhere, but you're right. The key is consistency. Now, hey, we're a 7 seed this year. If we're not a 5 or a 4 seed next year, it's almost going to be like a regression again, which Northwestern is unfortunately kind of famous for when it comes to basketball.
Yeah, figuring out ways to come up short. As we welcome Mike Pat into the chat, our guest Matt Garner, he is the big stats and spreadsheet guy. I am a stats guy, not so much a spreadsheet guy. So we clarify that.
Point of clarification. Yep.
Yes, exactly. So as we venture out, unfortunately, it looks like our local schools aren't going to have a very deep run in this tournament. The Big Ten is, of course, well represented. They seem to be well represented in this tournament every year. They've got 8 schools in it this year, tied for the most. Yet I feel like we've seen this movie enough times where they have 8 schools get in, and then by the time we get to possibly even the Sweet 16, but certainly by the Elite 8, they're down to a school, and it's Maryland or somebody like that, where it's how in the fill in your long, colorful language is that the school that's still here, while Purdue, the 1 seed, got bounced in the second game because they decided they just wanted to stare at the scoreboard or something.
Well, the problem that I'm seeing with the Big Ten and the problem that I'm seeing with the tournament is that the Big Ten beats up on each other. Every single team that is in this field could be anywhere between a 1 seed or a 10 seed. But quite honestly, if all things aside, conference play not being a factor, all 8 of these schools could probably be in a top 4, top 5 seed. But they beat up on each other so much that when it comes time to the tournament, 1, they're exhausted, just physically and mentally exhausted. And 2, not everybody plays the same style of basketball as they do in the Big Ten. And that could be a detriment because a lot of times these referees don't understand how Big Ten basketball is supposed to be played. They're going to call more fouls and ticky-tack situations on things that they've been working towards the whole year, and they can use that to a disadvantage. But you're right. I mean, even though we have 8 teams in this field, I would be highly suspect to say that come Sunday, there might be 1 or 2 teams left.
That's just... As somebody who tries to be in the Big Ten's, as much as I try to get in any college conference's corner, I guess. It just always frustrates me when it's, the Big Ten, they're so good, they're so underrated. Oh, look, they all dropped like flies. Here we go again. So as we look at this bracket and we look through, in general, if we're seeing a Big Ten team line up, should I give them the benefit of the doubt in this tournament, or should I? No. Let's maybe look at their opponent a little more closely as I'm filling things out.
Honestly, the only two teams I would give a pass for right now is Purdue and Indiana. Maryland's an 8, Michigan State's a 7. I mean, you can never count Tom Izzo out in the tournament, no matter what seed he is. But like I said, Maryland's an 8, Michigan State's a 7, Iowa is an 8. Iowa's biggest issue is they play so hard that they don't have enough energy to stay with it. They play really hard for 58 minutes a game, but the last 2 minutes of the game is where they start to falter, and they're going to make stupid fouls. They're going to make bad turnovers. They're going to make just silly mistakes that you wouldn't have to if you were a little more mentally fresh. And then Penn State is a 10, but just the fact that they got into the tournament was almost a miracle, because they had to scrap, they had to claw, they had to fight. They were a 10 seed in the Big Ten tournament, and they lost to Purdue in the final game by 2 points. So, I mean, they're not going to be fresh. They're going to be very tired. They're going to be mentally exhausted, and they have to travel pretty decently far. I don't remember exactly where they're playing, but I know it's not close to State College.
See, and I hear you say they were a 10 seed and they made it to the Big Ten title and they only lost by 2 to Purdue. And I know for a lot of people that's, wow, the Big Ten is so deep. And my brain just instantly goes, God, the Big Ten is so overrated. Oh, no. Oh, no.
I wouldn't say it's overrated. I would just say the parity of the league is what it is.
There's not that much separation.
I wouldn't call it overrating. I would call it parity.
There's just not that much separation between a team that should be a 1 seed and a team that should be a 10 seed. We'll see how that all boils out. Okay. Now, for those listeners who may have heard this segment this time last year, first of all, thank you for continuing to come back and listen. I really do appreciate that. Second of all, you may have recalled that the NCAA committee is one of those things that can make Matt Garner look like me when all is said and done, in that he goes from having a full, luscious head of hair to, pretty much bald by the end of it. What were some of the questionable, interesting, colorful decisions that the committee decided to make you just throw your bracket against the wall as they were announcing them this year?
Well, when they were announcing them last night, the first issue I saw is that they were having some technical difficulties with the bracket reveal. They were announcing a couple different teams that have already been in the field, and they put it on the graphic, and then the person who was revealing the bracket said a whole another different name, so it was kind of confusing. But they got that straightened out. It's all work. But as far as I'm concerned, the way I did my bracketology and stuff like that, I had 3 teams that I put in that I shouldn't have. And then there were 3 teams that I didn't put in that apparently I should have. So there is that. We'll start with the ones that should have been in that I didn't pick. NC State was the first one. I was on the fence on this one. I had them as my first team out of the bracket. I really went back and forth between that and say like Rutgers or Oklahoma State. NC State had a really good resume. They had a net rating of 45. They had 8 quad wins, and they didn't have any quad 3 or quad 4 losses. To me, a quad 3 or quad 4 loss is almost an unforgivable sin when it comes to college basketball. A quad 4 loss is one where it's like your buy-in game. So if you're going on the road to mid-major university and you lose, you basically paid that other team a whole bunch of money for them to kick your butt. The good news for NC State is that they didn't have any quad 3 or quad 4 losses, so that actually helped their cause a little bit in that case. But the one thing, or the 2 things I really didn't understand about the teams that got in was Arizona State and Pittsburgh. Arizona State had a net rating of 66. If you think about it, there's only 68 teams in the tournament. And when you have 30-some bids from mid-major conferences and conference winners and everything like that, there's no way they're a top 30 team. They only had 9 quad 1 and 2 wins. They had a quad 4 loss, which, like I said, was their bye game. They went on the road, or they brought somebody in. Either way, I don't remember what they did, but they lost to Texas Southern. Texas Southern's in the tournament with a record of more losses than wins. There were 20 lost teams. They were 14-20. Yep, they were only the 7th team ever to have a 20-loss season to make the tournament, but they won their conference tournament. Texas Southern's net rating was 294. So I'm sorry, a major program in the Pac-12 that Arizona State is can't lose to a team that is ranked 294th in the country and get in the tournament. I don't understand what they were thinking there. I mean, their net is too high. They don't have as many quad 1 wins as other teams did. And that loss to that team, even though they're a tournament team, I don't think justified them getting in. And maybe as I'm thinking about this now, the reason they got in is because they saw, well, they only lost to a team that's already in the tournament, so we might as well keep them in. I think that's bogus, but, again, they didn't ask me. And then the other one with Pittsburgh, I was really surprised to get in. They had a rating of 67, so it's even worse. They only had 8 quad 1 and 2 wins. They had a quad 3 loss to Vanderbilt, and they also had a quad 4 loss to, I always said Florida State. Florida State had a net rating today of 221. So, I mean, that's definitely a down year for Florida State. But no, it's just here. It's just awesome. Yeah, Mike, you have a good chance of being their starting point guard if that's the case. Anyway, so that's all good. So I would think that those two teams would be the most undeserving. Like I said, I was on the fence about North Carolina State. I mean, they were in and out of my bracket all year. I mean, let's be honest, this bracket changed daily. If you think about it, from the start of the season until now, this bracket changed daily. And it was going to change up until that last game was played. So there's that. As far as for the teams that I left out, or that I should have left out of the tournament, but I didn't, I'll start with Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State should have been the next team from the Big 12 to actually make it in. They had 10 quad 1 and 2 wins. That's the most out of anybody that was on the fence. Definitely more than North Carolina State, Arizona State, and Pittsburgh. They only had 1 quad 3 loss. That was to Southern Illinois. So another Illinois school represented there too. And quite frankly, they just got hosed because of that too. So,
hooray, we get represented for being bad.
Woohoo! Exactly. But Oklahoma State should have gotten in, based on that criteria, especially with the, lack of quad 4 losses. That was huge for me. And then quite honestly, the biggest surprise that I was floored that didn't get in was Rutgers. I mean, I had Rutgers as high as I remember a couple weeks ago. I had Rutgers as high as a 9 seed in this tournament. They didn't do well in the Big Ten tournament and stuff like that, but I didn't think that would have actually mattered too much. Rutgers had a net rating of 40, so that's on my opinion, the right side of the bubble. They did have 4 quad 3 losses, and that might have been their downfall. They lost to Minnesota, who had a rating of 220. They lost to Temple, who had a rating of 125. And then they also lost to Freddie Hoiberg's Nebraska squad, who had a rating of 92. So those losses hurt, but at the same time, in the Big Ten, it's very tough to win on the road. So I don't think they got a fair shake on that. I mean, quite honestly, as I'm looking at the numbers, though, those quad 3 losses were their death knell, even though their net rating was at 40. And then my other team that I also think that got hosed was Oregon out of the Pac-12. They had 9 quad 1 and 2 wins. They only had 1 quad 3 loss to Stanford. And talk about a program that's actually on the downfall is Stanford. But that was the only bad loss that they had. And then I don't understand this because Oregon beat Arizona State in the regular season. Arizona State had a quad 4 loss, had a lower net rating, and yet they made it in and Oregon didn't. I would be, if I were in Eugene, Oregon right now, I'd be upset.
That's kind of been the theme of this basketball season, it seems like, in college, is just like when you think you have a team or a conference or a system solved, they go ahead and lose a bunch of games that they shouldn't, and then that's that. All right, we've got just a couple of minutes left here, so give me who you like for your Final Four in this, and then I'm also curious who you like best as one or two bracket busters, the Oral Roberts, okay, or the school from last year that is escaping me, the 15 seed that made it into
St.
the
Pete.
16. St. Pete, there we go. So who are your Final Four, and who do you like best to be the ones that we're all going, I've never heard of them before. What are they doing here?
Okay. All right. My Final Four, I did this last night, just quick as a whistle on that. My first four Final Four picks were, yes, that should be the hype girls. I agree, dear. That's awesome. But for the tournament itself, what we're going to say is I had Purdue, Arizona, Texas, and UCLA. You can make the case for all four of them should have been a number one seed. But, again, not my bracket, not my decision. So that's all that. And then in the final two, I had UCLA over Arizona in the national championship. I think Arizona is playing hot at the right time. And I think they're going to take it to Purdue, and Purdue really needs to work on their breaking the press rather than doing what they've done for the last few games. But quite honestly, Adam, this field is so wide open that I am not confident with anything. I mean, anybody can beat anybody. We talked about parity. We talked about if you're hot, you're hot, and when you're not, you're not. I mean, games are going to come down to free throws. Games are going to come down to, honestly, some buzzer beaters, but it's just so wide open that I can't say with any degree of certainty that those Final Four are going to be the actual Final Four when everything is said and done. Houston isn't going to go very far, mostly because their best player in Sasser is out for the season with a pretty bad knee injury. So I wouldn't put my stock in them cutting down their nets in their home city. As far as the bracket busters, the first one I have is Drake. They are a 12 seed in the Midwest region against Miami of Florida. Drake, quite honestly, should have gotten an at-large bid had they not won the conference tournament. They have Larry Bird winner Tucker DeVries. They're the fifth oldest team in Division I, and if I were a betting man, this would be the 12-5 upset that I would have. And then the other one real quick is Grand Canyon. We talked about Bryce Drew, who used to play for the Bulls and was the former Valpo player and coach. They won the WAC tournament as a 5 seed, and they're going to play Gonzaga in the first round. They have an okay chance to upset Gonzaga, but I wouldn't put my money on that. But if I were a betting person, the upset special would be Drake over Miami of Florida.
Well, there you go. Matt Garner, thank you so very, very much, sir. That was a ton of fun. I was taking notes. We will be discussing this more. I currently have Marquette as my champion. I feel like I need to go back and fix my bracket. All right.
If you're that sure about it, I think you're going to be on a much better spot.
No. I my confidence level is nil, but it was a lot of fun filling it out. We'll put it that way. And yes, Mike, yes, the tournament does sound whack. Yes. All right. That does it for our show here tonight. Huge thank you to Matt Garner. Again, follow him on Twitter at MattG53, breaking down lots of college hoops, also lots of Bears talk, and all kinds of other fun banter back and forth. Thank you to Larry B for all your hard work that you do behind the scenes of IE Sports Radio. Thank you to our Patreon supporters, Bay Area Rays, Emlo Strength, Key to the Game, and our Anonymous. Thank you for your continued support in making not just this show, but this station possible week in and week out. Finally, thank you to everybody in the chat. Mike Pat, Elizabeth Garner, my mother, Larry B, Matt Garner pulling double duty, being in the chat and in the show at the same time. And, of course, Taryn Rodriguez. You can hear him coming up right after us with all things volleyball. Going to be talking some Loyola of Chicago. They just keep winning. It's the darndest thing. The Ramblers just do not lose in MIVA play. We hope they keep doing that. So, Taryn's going to be breaking that down plus more for us, so be sure to stick around and listen to him. For Matt Garner, for everybody at IE Sports Radio, I am Adam Karnick. Thank you guys so very much. A quick programming note. I am going to be off for the next several weeks. Baby is due date is a week from today. We all know what that means with babies, that it can be any time now. So I'm going to be off until April. Follow along with me on Twitter at IESRC, at Adam_Karnick. I'll do my best to keep everything updated there. We might have some short things between here and then, but it'll be a few weeks before you hear me on this show. I will be on tomorrow night with Zach Couples on Neutral Zone, but otherwise, we'll catch you on the flip side. Everybody be safe, be healthy. We'll see you then.